Hello, chess fans. Welcome to another episode of Chess Chat, a program brought to you live from the Rosehill Bank and Trust Studios at Fitchburg Access Television. I am George Mariginian, Program Director of the Wachusett Chess Club at Fitchburg State University. This club, the second oldest chess club in Massachusetts, meets every Wednesday evening from 6:30 to 10:30 in rooms 163 and 165 of the McKay Complex at the university. And with me today, in this 203rd episode of Chess Chat, is our award-winning director, Darren Dame of Fitchburg, recipient of FATV's very prestigious Boulder Award in 2009, and now in his 19th consecutive year as director of Chess Chat. Assisting Darren in the control room is fellow resident and longtime Wachusett Chess Club member Brian Bigelow, who also prepares the set for all the episodes of Chess Chat and also works a camera on the set. And sitting across from me is my longtime associate, trusty colleague, a very active chess tournament player, a chess author, a chess photographer, the Wachusett Chess Club Assistant Tournament Director, my co-host, Dave Kuchar of Westminster. Hello, Dave.
Hello, George. Good to see you.
Always good to see you, Dave. Well, Dave, early last month, April 4th, 2025 to be exact, one of the oldest grandmasters in the world died at the age of 90 in Reykjavik, Iceland.
He was actually the oldest, wasn't he?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, he wasn't?
No. The oldest grandmaster still alive is Andreas Dückstein of Austria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but Fridrik Olafsson is his name. Yeah. Grandmaster Fridrik Olafsson. He died at the age of 90, and he was a six-time Icelandic champion. He won it for the first time in 1952 when he was 17. He was born January 26, 1935, but he won it six times, the last time in 1969. He was president of the World Chess Federation, elected in 1978, and served 4 years. Now, I'm going to go into more about Fridrik Olafsson after we present to our Chess Chat viewers a game that we have selected, a fantastic game that Grandmaster Fridrik Olafsson played against 15-year-old Bobby Fischer in 1958 in what they call the fourth Interzonal tournament in Yugoslavia. It was played in Podgorica, Yugoslavia. It is now in present-day Slovenia. I mean, Podgorica. But it's a seaside resort, a spa. But it was very popular many years ago. Still is as a resort. But the game that we're going to present is from that interzonal tournament that both Olafsson and Fischer, Bobby Fischer, again, Fischer was the #1 player. Here's the photo now from the tournament. This is actually Bobby Fischer on the far left. He's 15 years old in this photo, yes. And Fridrik Olafsson standing, very tall, on the right. That's from the actual tournament. And standing next to Olafsson, second from the right, is one of the other participants in this interzonal tournament, was Palbenko, Grandmaster Palbenko, who was a Hungarian player, but he immigrated to the United States. Okay, but I think we should get into the game because this is a rather lengthy game. And then after the game, we have a surprise for our Chess Chat viewers. But let's get into this game that Bobby Fischer played against Fridrik Olafsson from the 1958 interzonal tournament in Podgorica, Yugoslavia. And who had white in the game?
Olafsson had white.
Okay, so how did Olafsson open the game?
He opens with c4, which is called the English opening.
Right, that's the character's move of the English opening. Okay, now, all right, so what Fischer did in response to that, he played knight to f6, developing a piece, and that's what he did. Okay, all right, so it's Olafsson's move. What did he play here?
Knight to c3.
Okay.
Very common follow-up.
Okay, now see whether we see it on our board here on the screen here. Okay, so after knight c3, we now all right. Here is where Fischer now plays. He could play e5 if he wanted to, but he played e6 instead. So now opening up now for the dark square bishop to come out. Okay, it's now Olafsson's move. What does he do?
Develops his other knight to f3.
Okay, knight f3. Okay, here is where Fischer now plays the pawn on d7 to d5. So that's his move.
Yep.
All right. So what does Olafsson do now in response to d5?
So he plays d4, and so this means that, as often happens with the English, it's actually transposed into a d4 opening, the queen's gambit.
Aha. So by transposition, we have a queen's gambit here.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So because actually white is now offering that c pawn. All right. Okay.
Yep.
So after d4, okay, what Fischer did, he could have taken the pawn on c4,
Yep.
but instead he plays the bishop on f8 to b4. Now, this is an interesting variation, has a name. That in chess, openings have names to variations. Do we know what the name of this variation is?
It's called the Rogozin, but
Rogozin. It's a Russian player.
I only learned that now.
Vyacheslav Rogozin. It was popular years ago. I don't know if it's popular nowadays, but again, it's still played by players, you know, who like it. All right, so it is now Olafsson's move. What does he do now?
He takes the pawn on d5.
Okay, c takes d5. Now there's two ways to take back. He could take back. He could take back with the knight. That's a possibility.
Yep.
But he decides to take back with the pawn.
I suppose he could even take back with the queen because the knight is pinned.
That's right. He could actually even take with the queen because the knight is pinned. So that was a possibility too. But by taking with the e pawn, e takes d5, he's now solved his problem with the pawn on e6 was shutting in that light squared bishop. Now it's not shut in.
Yep.
All right. So it is now Olafsson's move. What does he do in response now?
Again, very standard. Plays bishop to g5, so pinning the knight against the queen.
Okay.
While he develops.
Okay. All right. So there's a pin there. All right. So what Fischer did was put the question to the bishop. He attacked the bishop, forcing white to make a decision here. The bishop's attack. So there are two choices. We either take the knight or retreat the bishop. I mean, all right. So what did Olafsson decide to do?
He decided to retreat.
Okay.
And then keep the pin.
Bishop h4 is his move.
Yep.
Okay. All right. It's now Fischer's move. He could castle here. That's a possibility. But instead, he plays the pawn on c7 to c5. All right. So now he's attacking the d pawn. But again, Olafsson has to make a decision. How does he continue here on his eighth move, right?
Eighth move.
His eighth move.
So he plays e3, defending the pawn, opening up a line for the bishop to develop.
Okay, it looks like a very good move. All right, Fischer now just continues with his piece development and plays his knight to c6. Let's see, we see this on our, yes, we do see it. Okay, it's now Olafsson's ninth move. What does he do? Now, what does he do?
Rook to c1. So he's got this on the half-open file.
Right.
So if he moves his knight out of the way, this pawn's going to be attacked.
Right. He could have actually brought the bishop out to d3. That was an option.
Yep.
Because we're going to see what's going to happen next, where he's deprived of doing that.
Right.
Because now after rook c1, what Fischer does is play the pawn to c4, locks it up.
Locks up the position, yep.
Depriving white the opportunity of playing the bishop to d3, which he could have played
earlier
instead of rook c1.
Yep.
All right. So it is now Olafsson's move. What does he do on move 10?
So he develops it to e2.
The only square he can go to.
Yep.
Okay, bishop e2. All right. Again, Fischer could castle here in this position, but decide, okay, I'm going to develop my bishop on c8 to e6. So he acts further defense of the pawn on d5, which is defended by the knight on f6 and the queen. But this is further defense of that pawn. It is now Olafsson's 11th move. What does he do here?
He castles.
Okay.
And one thing that does is it breaks the pin. So
That's right. No longer a pin now. Okay.
Knight is no longer pinned.
All right. So what Fischer did is, well, hey, you castle, I can castle.
Yep.
And that's what he did. Black castles on move 11. All right. Olafsson, how does he continue here? He's got to come up with a plan here. And what did he do?
Actually plays knight to d2, which I think is still a book move.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
I guess part of it is it allows bishop access to the diagonal. It also probably prepares to push here if he wants.
Oh yeah, it does support the support the advance of the okay.
Yep.
All right, so with the knight on d2, which he did, what was rather interesting, Fischer decided the bishop he had developed at b4, he brings it back to e7,
Yep.
and actually lets the bishop protect the knight, and having the instead of the queen having to protect the knight,
Yep.
because the knight was pinned. The knight was pinned. Now we have a bishop now protecting that. We have overprotection of the knight on f6. All right, it is now Olafsson's 13th move. How does he continue?
So he plays b3.
Now, what is he threatening by playing b3?
Now he's threatening to win this pawn because he's got 2 attackers and it's only defended once.
Well, actually, I think there were 3 attackers, really.
3? Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 3.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm sorry, we got actually the bishop, the knight, and the pawn. So it looks like, White's threat is definitely to take the pawn on c4 and win a pawn.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, because of that, but by playing b3, what Fischer does now is first play g5. Look at it. He's now moving on the queen side, as king side, castle position, attacks the bishop. And that force, White only has one move to save the bishop.
I mean, what he's doing is generally considered fairly risky to be moving the pawns in front of your king.
That is considered risky to weaken the castle position.
Yep. So
okay, so
bishop
he moves
to g3.
Bishop g3 is what he played. Now here is where Fischer says, okay, now that you moved back with your bishop, I'm going to bring my bishop back again here, but however to a3 and attack the rook. Okay, bishop now on a3 is attacking the rook on c1. It is now Olafsson's 15th move, is it?
15th move, yeah.
Okay, he's got to move the rook to save it.
So rook to c2.
Okay, he plays rook to c2. Well, wait a minute. This allows Fischer, in response to this, to play the knight to b4, and now that the rook is attacked, and it cannot save itself.
There's no place to go,
There's no retreating. No. Now, he could have played the rook to b1, I think would have actually prevented that.
Yeah.
But he chose to play the rook to c2. I don't know if there's any analysis, computer analysis or engine analysis on this. But again, it seems, is there an evaluation of this position at any time?
I think right now it's supposed to be roughly even.
Roughly even. So
even though he's going to lose the exchange.
Even though he's going to lose the exchange after playing rook c2, which he did, okay. Yeah, right. So it is now, wait a minute, it is now actually White's move, right?
White's move, so he
says, okay, I'm going to lose the rook.
Lose the exchange, so he takes the pawn on c4.
He takes c4. And of course, Fischer carries out his attack on taking the rook.
Yeah.
Knight takes c2. All right, so this is now winning the exchange. That is giving up a minor piece. I mean, that is winning a major piece for a minor piece.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Olafsson now takes back. Queen takes c2.
Yeah.
All right. So Fischer's ahead by the exchange. Okay.
Right.
However, after Queen takes c2, what Fischer did is he took this pawn on d5 and took the pawn on c4.
Yeah.
Okay? D takes c4 was his move. Now, there are a number of players, if we presented this position to a number of players, whether at the club or elsewhere, they would probably be eager to actually recapture the pawn on c4 because we have a double attack.
I would. I mean, I certainly would. I'd probably just play knight
However,
takes.
that could be dangerous because by taking there, this could possibly allow, it could allow an exchange and then the rook coming over, pinning that knight.
Right.
I mean, it could be dangerous.
It could be dangerous, yeah.
So what Olafsson did was a good move. I think a good move. It's his move, right?
Yeah. He played knight to b5.
What's he threatening?
Attacking the bishop.
Okay, the bishop is under attack on a3. So what this attack on? So that bishop can't stay there.
Right.
So this bishop on e3 could have gone all the way back here, but instead Fischer decided to play the bishop to b4 and attack the knight on d2.
Yep.
Okay, It is now Olafsson's move here, move 19. Wait a minute. What does Olafsson do here?
So now, part of the reason for moving the knight here was that he could plop it in here because it's covered by the bishop.
That's right, defended by the bishop on G3.
Right.
But we now have an attack on the rook
Yep.
as well as an attack on the bishop.
Yep.
All right, we're attacking two pieces here. All right, so how is Fischer going to respond to this move, knight c7? Well, he decides to take the knight on d2.
Right.
Bishop takes d2 is his move. Let's get this off.
Yep.
All right. Now, what did Olafsson do in response to that move? Did he take the rook?
He certainly could have taken the rook.
But he chose not to.
Chose not to.
Okay.
And part of the reason, so he takes the bishop on e6.
Knight takes e6. And of course, now we have the double attack, rook and queen.
Right.
He has to take back.
Right.
So he takes, and the f pawn takes the knight on e6. F takes e6. It is now Olafsson move. Now this next move is a surprise. There are players actually in this position would play what Fischer didn't play. I mean, what Olafsson didn't play. What Olafsson played here was I would call it Zwischenzug. He did have here, look like a very strong move with queen.
Queen.
Look at this.
Queen to g6 check.
Forcing the king to move to h8, and then he takes the pawn
right.
h6 with check. And this looks good for white.
Yeah, it would have been the better move, I think.
Yes, I think actually the computer analysis pointed
Yeah.
out this was a stronger move.
Much stronger, yeah.
Much stronger than what Olafsson played. What Olafsson played, however, was he took the bishop on
The pawn on
d2.
c4.
Bishop, and now he has an attack on the undefended pawn on e6.
Yeah.
So he still has the threat of queen takes
Right.
g6 check, as well as the bishop takes e6
So
check.
it wasn't a bad move. It's just that queen
But-
g6 was probably better.
Yeah, queen g6 check was stronger than the bishop. The bishop takes c4.
Yeah.
All right, so after bishop takes c4, well, Fischer realized he cannot allow that queen to come here with the check.
Yep.
So he plays the queen to e8, controlling that
Sure,
square
yep.
on g6. All right. It is now Olafsson's 22nd move. What does he do?
Now he takes the bishop.
Now
back.
he takes the bishop. Now, is there an evaluation at this point that you have for the game? Is it still?
Yeah, I think White's got the advantage here.
So
actually.
there's a white advantage, even
Yeah.
after giving up the exchange.
You have to change. He's got an
yes.
extra pawn.
Oh yes, right.
And he's got the two bishops.
He's got the two bishops. Exactly. Right. All right. And he's got, okay. So it is now. Fischer's move.
Yep.
He plays knight e4, attacks the queen. He's also attacking the bishop on g3. That queen
Yep.
has to move to save itself. So where does the queen go?
Queen goes to d3.
Okay, queen to d3, attacking the knight. And what Fischer decides to do is says, hey, I got to get rid of this bishop. Knight takes g3 is his move. Now, the question is, how does Olafsson retake that knight? With what pawn?
Yeah. So he plays h takes g3. In general, you like to capture towards the center anyway.
Yeah, but I don't think you want to take it with the f pawn because I think Fischer would be eager to trade off rooks because
Right.
remember he's the exchange ahead.
Sure. Yep.
So he decided this is the way to take,
Yep.
not to allow any rook exchanges.
Yep.
So he took h takes g3. All right. So whose move is it now?
Fischer's
Oh,
24th. Yep.
So we still have we have an attack on e6 with the bishop, but of course it's protected by the queen.
Yeah.
But Fischer says, I don't want to have the queen have to be the defender of that pawn on e6. I want to use this rook to defend it, so I have other ideas for this
Sure,
queen,
yeah.
not to be held down to defend the pawn on e6 with the queen. So now rook f6 is what Fischer did play. How does Olafsson continue here?
So he plays queen e4.
What's he threatening here?
So he's threatening to grab that pawn.
Okay, pawn is under attack on b7. All right, so what Fischer did, I mean, he decided, oh, hey, this rook has not developed yet. It's the only
Yep.
piece left. So he said, wait, I'll just come over to c8, rook c8, and attack your bishop.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so that was Fischer's move. It is now Olafsson's 26th move. How does he continue?
So he simply moves it back out
Yes,
of the
move
way.
it. Very good. Just retreat is good. All right, so what Fischer now has to come up with a plan of defense. He's on the defensive here, but he plays the queen to d7. That's
Yeah.
the move.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, he could have played it to f7 and added pressure on this pawn, but
yeah, that's possible. But okay, so he plays the queen d7. His moves are limited here. It is now Olafsson's move. It's move 27.
yeah. So he plays rook to d1.
Okay.
You know, putting the rook on the same file as the queen.
Is it possible that could be the threat of possibly moving that, advancing the pawn?
Pushing that pawn
Yes.
forward, yeah.
Exactly. That could be a nasty threat, advancing the pawn to d5. All right. Well, all right. What Fischer does is, you know, I'm going to overprotect that pawn on e6 by playing this rook that I brought to c8 and bring it over now to e8, and now we'll have the two rooks and a queen defending that pawn on e6.
Right. It sort of stops, you know, if he wanted to do this,
Right.
if he took, he'd, you know, this pawn is pinned, so
Right.
that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons.
So that is but that's still a threat though. All right.
Yep.
All right. So after rook e8, it is now Olafsson's move. What did he do?
Yeah, f4.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. All right. So after f4, Fischer now continues how? Well, Fischer says, you know what? Maybe I can make my life easier, game easier, by just trying to force queens off the board.
Yep.
So he plays the queen over to h7 and offers an exchange of queens. All
Yep.
right. Now, is Olafsson going to accept this exchange of queens?
No, he doesn't want to trade
No, he
pieces
doesn't want
at
to.
this point.
At this point, he does not want to trade queens.
So he pushes it up, attacks the rook.
So yeah, so now the rook on f6 is under attack. So with the attack there, Fischer is adamant. So I want these queens off the board.
Yep.
And so he plays the queen to f5 and says, hey, I'm offering you the exchange. You're either going to take it because you can't go anywhere else. You know, because you have to. The queen is tied down to the defense of this rook here. So
Olafsson actually misses something nice here. We'll just show quickly. If Fischer had taken and the rook came up, he could have then pushed the pawn to e4.
So Olafsson had this could have played this.
Yeah.
You mean advancing the pawn?
So exchange queens, advance the pawn, and then just keep pushing the pawns. But
All right, but he chose not to do that.
yeah.
So what he did after, if I be actually,
So he played g4.
yeah. Oh, but the interesting move, because now he says you can't take that pawn because this queen is tied down to the
rook.
defense of the rook.
Yep.
So this forces the exchange
Yep.
of queens. So in this position after g4, Fischer has to take on e5. Queen takes e5, force.
Yeah.
It's a force move, and of course Olafsson retakes with the d pawn,
Yeah.
which opens up now the d file for him, attacks the rook on f6, and that rook on f6 has to move. It has two squares to go to. It can go to f8 or f7. Only two choices.
Yeah.
What does Fischer decide to do? He plays the rook back to f7, which also protects the rook from coming down to the 7th rank here with
Right.
an attack on the b pawn.
Yeah.
All right, the rook on f7. It's now Olafsson moves. What does he do?
So here come the pawns. He plays f5.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We now have, with that very strong move, now we have the threat of taking on e6 and threatening to win the rook because of the pin. The rook would be pinned. So after f5, Fischer realizes, I can't keep that rook here. I'll lose a rook. So he plays the rook over to c7. He realizes he can't save that pawn. It's going to be lost. But he certainly doesn't want to keep the rook on f7 and lose the rook.
Yeah.
So the rook is now on c7. Now, a lot of players in this position would immediately take the pawn, check, and attack the king. But Olafsson comes actually up with I think maybe a better move.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He puts more pressure on that pawn on e6 by playing what?
Rook to d6.
Rook d6. Look at, he's really putting pressure on that on e pawn with rook d6. All right, so Fischer has problems here. What he decides to do is play this rook now on c7 to c5. Now this rook is attacking this pawn on e, threatening to win that pawn on e5.
Yep.
Which would be attacking the pawn on e3. Yeah. For one thing. Okay. So now, after rook c5, how did Olafsson continue?
He takes on e6 with check.
He takes a check, which now forced the king to move, right? And the king actually moved actually toward the center. Didn't move over this way. The way is f8. Played king f8. Okay. So king f8 is his move, right? Okay. All right. So what does Olafsson do now? This is the move actually 35, right?
Yeah, so we'll just show quickly again. A better choice actually was this, to block the rook from attacking that.
Oh.
And then he was be able to just push these pawns.
Oh, so he had a better
move, but he played
better move.
He played bishop to b3.
All right. So he missed a stronger move.
Yeah, so now
it's a good move, but not as strong as the move you pointed out.
Yeah.
All right. So the bishop is on b3, you say. All right. So here allows Fischer now to take the pawn. However, how are we taking that pawn on e5? With what rook? The rook on the c file or the rook on the e file? Well, Fischer played with the rook on the c file. Rook takes c, takes e5. Now he has an attack on the
double attack.
Double attack on the pawn on e3. Okay, it is now.
And in fact, the computer evaluation right now is that it's an even game.
Really?
Yeah.
So the computer said this is an even game right here?
Yeah.
Okay. However, it is Olafsson move. Isn't he winning a pawn here?
Well, he's going to get this pawn on h6.
Rook takes h6. That's what he did.
Yep.
And Fischer said, well, I'm going to get my pawn. You get yours, I'll get mine. Okay, so rook takes e3. All right, so that was actually, all right, so move 37 coming up. How does Olafsson continue? What does he do?
Rook to g6, now he's hitting this pawn.
And there's no way to defend that for the money.
Right.
Olafsson's going to get that pawn on g5. So rook g6. So what Fischer does here, he realizes this rook on, let's see, it's on the 8th rank, is now moving to e4. With this, moving this rook to e4, he's now attacking this pawn on g4.
Right.
Okay, so that's what he did.
But Olafsson's going to take the pawn on g5, and now he's defending the pawn.
Now it's protected, right, after the rook takes g5, the pawn step. All right, so what Fischer does is play, okay, I'm going to play this rook over to g3.
Yeah, which is a mistake.
That's a mistake.
He really needed to do this.
Yes, to stop the it stops the advance of the f pawn. So the move he missed was playing the rook to f5, f4. But instead, he's going after this pawn, where he should be more concerned about the passed pawn on the f file.
Yeah. So
this is a mistake.
He's in trouble now. Yeah.
After playing rook g3, and here is where after he played, say rook g3 was his move. It is now whose move is it now?
It's Olafsson's 39th move.
Oh yeah.
So he plays rook down, g8 check.
Aha. And I see there's only one move here for black here.
Yep.
There is only one move in this position. King e7 is the only move. All right. So king e7 is what he played. All right. All right. So, but now
he's free to push the pawn to g5.
Yeah, because the rook is still protecting it.
Yeah.
All right. It's still protecting the g pawn. Okay. All right. So here's where Fischer says, "Wait, I got to find some counterplay here."
Yeah. He knows he's in trouble.
He knows he's in trouble. But now, by playing rook to e2, he's now threatening to take here on g2 check and possibly just check,
end up checkmating him.
Checkmating him. Yeah. Or at least perpetual check. Yeah.
Right.
Check. However, thanks to this bishop that retreated to b3, coming to the rescue,
d5
and
covers.
protecting that pawn on g2, that's critical. That bishop is critical in the defense of White's position. Here is where Fischer now comes up, the d6 with the king d6, attacks the bishop on d5, that's doing the protection on the pawn on g2. However, Olafsson easily solves his problem.
Yeah, simply puts it back on f3.
Attacks the rook on e2.
Attacks the rook on e2.
Yeah.
Locks this.
Blocks that. That
rook can't go anywhere now.
That rook now cannot move. The rook on g3 cannot move. The rook on e2 is attacked.
Yeah.
So Fischer, now in this position, says, well, I'm going to take the pawn. Rook takes a2 is what he does. And it is now Olafsson's 43rd move coming up. How does he continue?
These pawns just keep on coming. F6.
And what is he threatening to do? Is he threatening to advance it even the F7 and actually a queen, promote that pawn to a queen?
Yep.
So Fischer realizes, wait, with the pawn to F6, he's got to stop the advance of this pawn to F7. However, he plays king E6, thinking, okay, that stops the pawn from advancing. However, let's pause. If we can pause the position now with the king on E6, so our viewers look at the position. Okay, here is the position on our board. Do our viewers see the move, the winning move that Olafsson played that forced Fischer's immediate resignation?
Yeah.
Fischer resigned after Olafsson found the winning move that forced the resignation. And what? Okay,
time's up.
Time is up. What was the move that Olafsson played?
He plays rook to E8 check.
Okay, attacks the king. The king now cannot move away from the pawn that's going to advance. If the king moved over to F7, Fischer realizes he can't. He resigned because moving the king to F7, which is stops the advance, allows
bishop to H5, and that's checkmate.
That is checkmate. So he didn't want to face checkmate with bishop H5
there's no
if he
point.
moved to F7 with the king to stop the advance of the F pawn. So that was a fantastic game. From the 1958 Interzonal tournament in Portorož. Now we have a good surprise for our Chess Chat fans. We have an interview, courtesy of YouTube, a YouTube video, of Olafsson's last interview that he conducted. He had to be actually in his late 80s when he conducted this. I don't think he was 90. He turned 90 this past January. But we're going to present this interview. And courtesy of our award-winning director, we have closed captioning on this interview because Olafsson's English may not be understandable because of the accent, might be difficult. So it's going to help having closed captioning on this very informative interview by Fridrik Olafsson. So let's have our director roll this YouTube video of Olafsson's last interview.
If you're a president of FIDE, I mean, you cannot just forget to play chess. I don't think I was too sorry. I kept in the shadows. He said he would be already world champion in 2 years. Bobby, please, I think you were a bit in a hurry. So I knew Spassky very well, because it was not easy to play Bobby Fischer. It's a secret, really. Well, he was influenced by some animal power. This is a little bit philosophical. I think it was in the tournament in '76 that he came to me and asked me whether I would be available to become the next runner. I was very surprised, of course. I had never given it a thought. But actually, I thought that the conditions for the players were not quite good enough. So I had there were a group of chess players about my own strength, but to say, who had the same opinion. So we thought, well, maybe if you were ready to sacrifice yourself for a few years just to try to do something about this, to get inside FIDE and rectify the conditions, then we would really support you. Well, if you're a president of FIDE, I mean, you cannot just forget to play chess. You have to follow what's going on, because you have to know what's going on underneath and appreciate how the players are doing. I don't know if you are a chess player, real chess player, you cannot really just forget all about it and say, well, this phase, I'm going to leave it here. And then so later on, I will pick it up when I am on the road. So that's what happened. So we made rules about the minimal conditions in tournament. That was the first thing we did. And of course, when I say we, I had a lot of chess players, like English players, Irish players, mostly from Western Europe, I must say. But we started making all things more stable for chess players, so that if they played in a tournament, they could expect at least to have some minimum rules. They could show it to the organizers and say, well, you are not following the rules. Well, this is how we saw it, because we were the sufferer. The computer was coming up at that time, around 1978, 1979, 80. I think I attended the first World Championship for computers. Well, that was in Austria. But then the computers were really bad. So I beat one of them, the world champion, in 15 moves. And so they had a long way to go. But anyhow, the computer companies, they gave their money to chess. You can always do something better. So I don't think I was too sorry. So when I came here to Iceland, I got a good job. The General Secretary of the Icelandic Parliament. So if the chess world didn't want me, there was no problems for me. It's a very strange thing that already from young age, when I was starting to play chess and I realized that I might make a very good chess player, I also thought at the same time that I should not become too much depending on chess. I don't know why. I was a young kid, I think 10, 11, 12. So I started my career as a lawyer. I became a lawyer from the university here in Iceland. And from that point, I played chess. But I decided that I would never let chess get the upper hand in my life. FIDE today and FIDE when I was there, completely different situations. And it's very difficult to compare. So I know it's much more work to do today. The technique is quite different. When I was in FIDE, to get in touch with some member in Africa, it was absolutely impossible. If you wanted to send them a telex or telefax or something, this was just a chance of 1,000 that would ever get all the way. No, it's very difficult to compare, but FIDE today is enjoying all the that, as far as I understand, all the benefits of the techniques today. I met him first time when he was 15. We played in a tournament in Portoroz, and that was 1958. It's a long time ago. But we became immediately good friends. He was very childish, of course, boyish, And I think already the first day we met, or second day, we had a chat, and he told me about his expectations and what he was, how he saw the immediate future before him. And he said he would be already world champion in 2 years. And I said, Bobby, please, I think you were a bit in a hurry. So I liked him a lot, and he was very sincere as a boy. And I don't know how he learned all these theories about science, espionage, FBI, and all these things. It completely changed him. He was not the same nice young Bobby Fischer. And I played him 58, I played him 59, 60, 61. And, but after that I finished my studies, and I got my job as a lawyer in Iceland. So I didn't see him for 5, 6 years so much. That was year 61 to 67, 68. And then he had changed quite a lot. He was not the same boy, same nice boy. I knew them quite well, both of them. I had to, you know, not to stay in the middle. I had to be careful not to say anything, because it could always happen that there was a problem. And if something happened, I might be able to solve the problem by intervening, you know. So that is why I kept in the shadows. Bobby Fischer, he had conceded. I mean, he said, okay. I was in his suite with Lombardi, and we both tried to persuade him to come and play this second game. But in the end, he said, okay, but then you have to turn back the clock. So, so that was a problem. I called Lothar Smith and told him this. And Lothar Smith said, this is not possible, not according to the rules of chess. So that's what happened. So I knew Spassky very well. And he was one of my good friends in the circle, chess circle. It's a secret, really. But I had good feelings for both of them. And it was just for me that one of them had to win. And I would stay on good terms with both of them, because it was not easy to play Bobby Fischer. I can say that for me, Bobby Fischer was probably the most difficult player to play I played in my life. If he made a move, you could sense that this was the right move. And you know, just to feel the strength of his character. Some say animal character, you know. Yes, that's what Spassky said. He said that well, he was influenced by some animal power. Yes, when I was in hospital, I visited him quite a lot. That was the last month of his life. And I did my best. I was one of those who did their best to to convince him, to persuade him to let his daughters do their what they could do to help him. I am told it would have been a rather minor operation, but I have been told later that it was maybe not so easy to adjust or this illness, which have to do with the kidneys. And but it was very, very sad to see him just vanish away, disappear, because he was a very, very stubborn guy. And well, but he kept to his own, as one of the doctors said, he fought his own battle, and he got the wrong straw, but he won, because he never failed, he never strayed away, you know. I don't know, this is a little bit philosophic, but if a puppy decided to do something, you couldn't let him waver or take another road than he had selected.
The last interview of Grandmaster Fridrik Olafsson, who talked a lot about Bobby Fischer, whom he faced numerous times in the 1950s and the 60s. Dave and I presented a historic game that Olafsson won in August 1958 in Portorož, Yugoslavia, in this interzonal tournament, in which they competed with other players. There was that interzonal was 21 players from various countries around the world. It's called an interzonal because the World Chess Federation, which is more commonly known by its French acronym FIDE, which stands for the Fédération Internationale des Échecs. The World Chess Federation divides the chess world into zones, and their zonal championships. Some zones are strictly the country alone, like the United States is a separate zone. Okay. China, Russia, India, these are countries which are zoned by themselves. Other countries are grouped based on geography. Like, for example, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, even Slovenia are grouped in one zone. So countries are grouped geographically, but also by their status in the chess world, as the leading chess countries are a zone unto themselves. Anyways, in this interzonal that Bobby Fischer and Olafsson played in, there were 4 players from the Soviet Union, and they were Michal Tal, who went on, by the way, to win the candidates tournament. After this interzonal tournament of the 21 players, they took the top 6 finishers into the zonal. And Michal Tal won the interzonal in 1958. He came in first. Yep. And second was actually Svetozar Gligoric from Yugoslavia. Tigran Petrosyan, who came to Fitchburg, by the way. Tigran Petrosyan, who was world champion from 1963 to 1969, who came to Fitchburg in February of 1982. Okay. He tied for 3rd and 4th with Pavel Benko, who was one of the American participants. The United States had 3 players. You had Bobby Fischer, Pavel Benko, who immigrated from Hungary, and Jimmy Sherwin, a native-born American, who played in the interzonal. But Fischer and Olafsson, they tied for 5th and 6th. Okay. Of course, Olafsson beat Fischer but they tied for the fifth and sixth spot, and they went on to the candidates tournament. So the top 6 finishers, Tal, Gligerich, Petrosyan, Benko, Fischer, Olafsson, went on to what we call a candidates tournament. Now the candidates tournament was a quadruple round robin.
Okay.
That means 8 players. They played. There were 28. They played 4 games against each opponent, each of the other 7. Wow. So 28 games.
Wow.
And who won the candidates tournament? It was Michal Tal,
right,
who actually went on to become defeating Michal Botvinnik, the reigning world champion, in 1960. Tal only held the world championship 1 year. He lost the return match in 1961.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but again, interzonal, the World Chess Federation, and I mentioned earlier that that Olafsson was elected president of the World Chess Federation, FIDE, in 1978. You know whom he replaced? Or was actually, there's a name, Max Euwe.
Yeah.
Okay. Max Euwe was the preceding FIDE president, who was, by the way, the 5th world champion.
Right.
Now, some of our Chess Chat viewers must know some of our early world champions. The first one was Wilhelm Steinitz, followed by Emanuel Lasker. Wilhelm Steinitz came from Austria, settled in the United States. Emanuel Lasker, born in Germany, 2nd world champion, came to the United States. Number 3, Jose Capablanca, born in Cuba, came to the United States. All these 3 world champions, the first 3 world champions, decided to make the United States their home. They left their home country. Now, the 4th world champion was actually Alexander Alyekhin, who was born in Russia but left Russia after the revolution and settled in France, became a French citizen. But Max Euwe, who was FIDE president, actually defeated Alexander Alyekhin in 1935 to become world champion, but then lost the return match to Alyekhin in 1937. So FIDE, and we've done programs on FIDE. FIDE was founded in 1924 at the Summer Olympics, and I surprise a lot of people when I tell them that chess was played in the Olympics, the regular Olympics.
Right.
There are a lot of people I know who are non-chess players say, "What? Chess in the Olympics? How can that be?" I said, "No. Chess was played in the Olympics in 1924, and the chess players were never invited back. Why? Do you know why?"
Well, only because you've told me.
Yes. The reason why chess players were never invited back after the 1924 Olympics, the regular Olympics, is they found out, wait a minute, the Olympics are for amateur players, amateur athletes, and they found out they were professionals among those who competed. So then because of that, they said, no, can't trust these chess players. We will never have you back. Now, there's an attempt by the current World Chess Federation to get chess back in the Olympics. Now, what are the chances that chess will now once again be part of the regular Olympics? Is there any chance that will ever happen?
Probably a small chance.
It's a small chance. Again, there's hope by some that chess will be played in the Olympics. But again, you and I, Dave, know that chess is the most ingenious game ever created. I mean, it's played around the world. The World Chess Federation, FIDE, is the 2nd largest sport organization in the world. Second only to the International Football
FIFA.
Soccer Federation, FIFA.
Yeah.
And when I tell people who don't play chess, I said, there are more books written about chess than all the sports put together. You name all the sports. Baseball, football, soccer, basketball, tennis, golf, you name it, whatever it is. Name all the sports that are played in the world. There are more books written on chess, about chess, than any other sport. And chess is a sport. It is recognized in many European countries as part of their Olympic sports committee. So, anyways,
Brian is indicating we should mention the
Okay,
awards.
Yes. Oh, yes. Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't do this because we have to give thanks to FATV. Many thanks to FATV. We've been down with FATV since October 2006. We are now in our 19th straight year with FATV. And on May 1st of this year, the crew of Chess Chat with our director, Darren Dame, you as co-host, Brian Bigelow is our great assistant, and myself is one who just tags along and enjoys doing the
Tags
show.
along, yeah.
We were awarded the what they call the Romulo Testamata Award, and this is for volunteers. This show is done strictly by us volunteers.
Right.
I mean, we gain no assistance as far as doing this show because I guess we know what we're doing. They leave us alone. FATV leave us alone. They like what we do. They gave us an award, the Romulo Testamata Award for volunteerism at FATV, and we appreciate the award, and we hope to continue with the Chess Chat as long as we can, because it's a great game. It's a great game, and it's played by millions of people around the world. It's an old game, going back more than 1,500 years. It's been around a long time. So
one statistic we can throw out is that chess.com has over 100 million members.
Over 100 million members?
Yeah.
Now, this is an online organization where people can play anywhere in the world. I mean, so that's a huge organization where you have over 100 million members. Of course, there's another organization also, Lee Chess.
Lee Chess,
is also does it. So chess is very popular. And as I pointed out, I think I pointed out many times, that actually at one time, Fitchburg's Wachusett Chess Club has the best I mentioned this at the award ceremony. Fitchburg's Wachusett Chess Club at Fitchburg State University has the best weeknight attendance, that is Monday to Friday, of any chess club in the nation. There's no other club in the country, whether it be New York, Chicago, Los Angeles.
That's amazing, yeah.
We, on a Wednesday night at Fitchburg State University, the McKay Complex, we draw more players on a weeknight night than any chess club in the nation. And we have to give credit to a professor. Professor of mathematics for 33 years at Fitchburg State, Professor Ernest Fondrier. We honor him every year with a memorial tournament in November. And he, years ago, back in the early 2000s, actually after Bob Antonucci became president of Fitchburg State College in 2003, he approached the president and says, President Antonucci, would you be receptive to the idea that Fitchburg State hosts the Wachusett Chess Club? And the president's response was positive. He says, we more than welcome the Fitchburg Chess Club as being hosted by Fitchburg State. It's an asset. They consider our presence at Fitchburg State an asset to the university. So again, we're very fortunate that we have Fitchburg State as our host. I mean, they are our host, and we are doing well. We're drawing players from the Boston area, from southern New Hampshire, from the Worcester area, because there is no longer a Worcester Chess Club. So we have Worcester players coming up. So we want to thank our Chess Chat fans from watching this program, and we promise, Dave, to present them a good program next time on Chess Chat.